Inclusion always has been and always will be a hot topic in special education. Nobody can seem to agree what the definition of inclusion truly is. So I'm going to challenge you this school year for you to make your own definition of inclusion based on the individual needs of a child. Whether that child is yours and you're a parent who sits at an IEP table and you're constantly making tough decisions because you know it has both a short-term and long-term impact for your child and for your family, or if you're a teacher and you have to make decisions for dozens of students on what inclusion looks like, it's important for you to make your own definition of inclusion for each individual child. This week, I've been having a conversation over on Facebook and Instagram all about how if you take a child who has an IEP and put them into general education, art, music, and gym, that is not an inclusion plan. That is simply putting a child who has different learning needs into the physical proximity of other students who do not have an IEP and lumping them into an environment that, quite honestly, is typically chaotic, or it is ever changing, meaning the rules change, the projects change, the expectations are constantly changing. It's one of the most difficult places to help a child truly fit in with their peers and join in for who they are and what their strengths are. It's one of the most difficult things. But so often the inclusion plan inside of an IEP is to simply take a child who has an IEP and put them into art, gym, and music. That is not an inclusion plan. All right, then as I'm scrolling through and I'm reading up on a whole lot of different things on inclusion this week, I come across somebody who is very well known in the education world. I'm not going to mention her name, talking about inclusion. And she redefined inclusion and said inclusion needs to be, and set a very strict definition of inclusion, that inclusion is where there is absolutely no need for any special education classrooms, no special education schools, no division between a child with a disability and a child who doesn't have a disability in the schools. Now, here's the thing. I'm struggling with that quite a bit. In fact, I'm never going to get onto the train of let's just eliminate all of the special education classrooms, all of the special education schools, because true inclusion means that a child who has unique needs must be able to make it in the real world. And that's how this person kind of presented it. It's like, we need to have these real, like the real world is not divided like that. So here's the thing. I talk about the real world all the time. You guys know I have a brother who's 43 with Down syndrome. I live in the real world of disabilities, adults with disabilities. And the real world, here's the thing. You get choices. In the real world, you get choices. As in, you and I, we have a choice. Do we live in the city? Do we live in the country? If we're going to continue our education, do we go to school online? Do we go to school in person? If we go to school in person, do we go to a big university? Do we go to a small university? We get to choose when the party invitation comes to our house. We get to choose, do we go to the party or do we not go to the party? Why would we eliminate the choice of doing what's best by utilizing all of the resources that are available? Meaning, I completely understand that a lot of people are extremely frustrated, myself included, when it comes to thinking about special education as all kids who look like this or act like this or have this label go into a specific special education classroom or program. That should not be happening. Special education classrooms are not just a place to say, go here and everything will be okay. But we also can't say, let's just eliminate that because the real world says that we're all going to have to function together. That's kind of not true. As I just said, there's choices. There are places that I choose not to go because it does not fit what I like. It does not fit my personality. It does not fit my strengths. And I don't want anybody to force me to have to blend into, let's just say, the concert that's happening down the street. I don't want to have to blend in or get along or try to take in the music in that environment. I want to take in the music in my headphones by myself on a walk. So I get that choice. Do I want the large environment or the small environment? As an adult, I get to choose how am I going to take in that information. And so having those options for a child does not mean that we are not doing inclusion right. It does not mean that we are segregating. It means that we are meeting a child's unique needs. And let's just go over that. I got to put the reminder out there all the time that the entire purpose of a child's IEP is to prepare them for further education, employment, and independent living. That does not look the same for everybody, and we know that, but sometimes we forget that that applies to inclusion also. So, maybe you don't know, or maybe you haven't heard this before, but there's a lot of shame that happens in the special education parenting community if you don't choose what the other parents are choosing when it comes to classroom, school, inclusion, and those things. So there might be a group of parents that, let's just say, their children all have the same diagnosis: autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, like you pick it. Okay. So we all know there's support groups out there, right? And what will happen is a group of parents will get very vocal about what they're choosing for their child. And if you don't choose that same thing, you're often thought like, really? Like, you're not going to come along on this with us? Like, this is right. But there's something in your gut that says that's not right for my child. That's not right. I need to do something different. But is that different wrong because everybody else is saying that this other option would be better? And that happens all the time with inclusion. And I want all the parents who are listening to this right now to know that you know your child best. And we say that all the time in the context of an IEP team. You know your child best. Okay? You know your child best when you're talking to other parents too. And for teachers, I want you to be able to expand your thought of what inclusion is, of what is possible, that it's not just for social, it's not just for academics, it's not just for physical proximity, it's not just for show, that this truly is helping a child become part of the school community from the minute that they step off of the bus to the minute that they get back onto that bus. That child needs to be included in that school community. Now, what their schedule looks like, how they're supported, what is given to them to access this inclusive experience. Because inclusion is an experience, it's not a place. It's not about, is there a special ed room or isn't there? It's not about, are they in gym class with their general education peers or aren't they? This is about an experience and making sure that the child is participating in their school day to the fullest extent possible. That includes all the different environments, from the hallway to the library to the cafeteria to entering their classroom to the playground to the study halls in high school, all the things. It's about being included and participating in your education, and what that looks like for each individual child is different. So these catch-all definitions of what inclusion is, what inclusion isn't, what we can do for inclusion, what we can't do for inclusion, the supports we can provide, the supports we can't provide, what they should be doing in an inclusive class and what they shouldn't be doing in inclusive class. Those definitions can change, but it takes you. It takes you, the parent, the teacher, the admin, the therapist, to redefine what inclusion means for each individual child. Sure, you can make a school statement of this is what inclusion is. You can talk in general terms about what inclusion is and what inclusion isn't, but each individual child needs their own inclusion plan to make sure that they are part of the school community. Again, from the minute that they step off of that bus to the time they get back on, that IEP document should be supporting an inclusive experience each and every minute of the day, whether they are in a special education classroom or they are in the art class. We need to make sure that everything is in place to make sure that that happens. If you're ready to redefine inclusion, put together these plans that I know work, because I've been doing this for 25 years. I've walked into crisis situation, observed what's going on, written up inclusion plans, gotten people on board to do this. This is not pie in the sky dreaming of, yeah, that would be great if. I'm telling you these things work, and I would love to teach you exactly how. I do that inside of the Master IEP Coach mentorship. You can find that at masteriepcoach.com. I hope to see you in there. And don't forget, wherever you're watching this, leave a comment, leave a review. Those make a huge difference. The more comments and the more reviews, the more parents and teachers who will find this information to help do things like redefine inclusion, so we are not stuck in old school habits and we're not being forced into situations that don't make sense for an individual child. Again, I hope to see you inside of the Master IEP Coach mentorship at masteriepcoach.com, and take the challenge. Take the challenge to redefine what inclusion is going to mean for your child or for your student this school year.